I'm Jay Perm with Executive Director for the South Carolina Democratic Party, and and I have this is my only job today. My only job at this moment is to remind you that Wofford College has been so gracious to host us today. Please, no food inside this theater, and drink only if you have a secured lid on your cup. Otherwise, you can hover right at this door and drink to your heart's content. Otherwise, that's fine. One other instruction before we, because we're going to just sort of roll through things today. When we get ready to do lunch, lunch is served essentially upstairs in the lobby. There's an elevator, which if you'll go right out this door, we have an elevator, or you can simply go up these stairs and out the back doors, or that's probably a little more difficult, or walk right out in the lobby and go up the stairs for our lunchtime today. And we will, you need to take you don't have to take your stuff with you, but if you need something at lunch, the Wofford security is securing this room and making sure there's, no issues with the room before Senator Booker comes this afternoon. So the room will be off limits for a little while we're having lunch. Okay. And I may remind you of that again. So without further ado, we're going to kick off our second in the series of John Spratt Issues Conferences with our state chair, Crystal Spain.
Oh, y'all are so kind. Thank y'all so much. Everything is always so low. I love y'all back. But thank y'all so much. Did it get dark in here? Ooh. Okay. It's mood lighting. Still kind of early for me. I might start nodding. But thank y'all so much and welcome. As Jay said, this is our second series in a series of 3 of our 2023 First in the Nation Spratt Issues Conferences. So we started this series down in Charleston, we had a great time. We had a few principals. We ended up with 3 principals that showed up. We invited the Secretary of Education, Dr. Miguel Cardona, and Congressman Rokana from Silicon Valley. And he also brought his dear friend, Congressman Jonathan Jackson of Illinois, who is one of our favorite sons, Jesse Jackson's son. So we had a really good treat in Charleston. But I also want to take a minute to thank Wofford College for their hospitality and their generosity in allowing us to use their campus and use their space. And also want to thank Converse University for allowing us to use their space. Last evening, we had a beautiful reception. We really had a great time. I see a lot of familiar faces of folks who were able to do that event last night. I want to take a few seconds and recognize some people who have been doing tremendous work and who have shown up to be great partners for us with this event up here in Spartanburg. And I did see her, but now that the mood has changed, I can't find her. But I want to acknowledge, there she is. Step into the light, Karen. Catherine Harvey, the chair of the Spartanburg Democratic Party. She really showed up in a major way with her team and helped us build this event. And so we're forever grateful for your support. I also want to thank the Clyburn Fellows. Kristen Irby and Catherine Harvey are the chair of that class, and also Mornir Albasoff for all their hard work, and just the Clyburn Fellows in general. I see so many of you out here for showing up and being supportive. So thank y'all very much. So please give them a round of applause. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge and recognize our dynamic vice chairs who have been traversing this state, traveling from the low country and the lowest country to get to wherever they need to be to support Democrats across the state. Please give a round of applause for our second vice chair, Maya Rivera Vasquez of Beaufort County. So, Beaufort is pretty far. It's a big hump from Beaufort to Spartanburg, and she did that on yesterday to be here with us this weekend. Our third vice chair, Michelle Brandt, who is also, I found out a couple of weeks ago, Miss South Carolina, hence the pageant wave. And she's coming up from Charleston. Our first vice chair, Colleen Condon, is also here, but she's helping us with refreshments this morning. So she ran out to get some more utensils. So please welcome and thank her when you do see her. So before we move right into our first panel, I do want to also just say that make sure that you hold on to your seats for our town hall later in the day. You're in for a huge treat with Senator Booker. He's been with us all weekend. And please, when you see him as well, which I'm sure he will engage the crowd, engage the audience, just thank him for his generosity. I called him and asked him to come in and support our party. I told him we needed to engage our voters across the state. I told him we needed to raise money. He has given us 3 days of his time. He flew into South Carolina Thursday night and he won't leave until Sunday evening. So we're taking him as many places as we can. But that's just tremendous amount of time to get from a sitting U.S. senator of that caliber. So make sure that you thank him. But I don't want to belabor. We're here to hear from some of our leaders and experts on some very, very important topics. So I'm going to bring to you Vicki Ringer from Planned Parenthood, who is more than an advocate for abortion, but she is going to introduce our first panel, and she is the moderator of that panel. And thank you so much, Vicki.
Whoa, Crystal is tall. All right, y'all come on up now. Y'all know who you are. And then I'm going to sit in the chairs with you. Hi, I'm Vicki Ringer. I am the director. Woo, I can't see y'all at all. You don't need to change it because, whoa. Be careful there, madam. Madam Chair. I will hold it until I move to the chairs. I'm Vicki Ringer. I am the Director of Public Affairs for Planned Parenthood Votes South Atlantic and Planned Parenthood South Atlantic. One is our C4 political organization, and one is the organization which runs our health centers in South Carolina and our 4-state affiliate. I am delighted to be with you today and to bring you these experts to have a discussion about the important topic of abortion access or lack thereof in South Carolina. And we have an incredible panel, and I'm going to introduce you to them now, starting with the first one here, Representative Rosalind Henderson Meyer. Rosalind is our esteemed representative from Spartanburg, District 31. Is that right? Rosalind has been a great champion for our issues, for proactive policies to benefit moms and children in South Carolina. Next to her is Representative Chandra Dillard. Representative Dillard represents District 23 in Greenville. Since this is the Upstate Issues Conference, I think it's only fitting that you get to hear from two tremendous women that carry a lot of the upstate on their shoulders. Representative Dillard has also been a tremendous champion for equal rights and women's rights across the board in South Carolina. We couldn't do this work without her. Next to Representative Dillard is Dr. Dawn Bingham. Dr. Bingham is an obstetrician gynecologist. She is a native of, well, maybe not a native. She's a resident of Spartanburg, and she actually practices medicine in Columbia, where she not only treats patients, but she's teaching the next generation of doctors, which is just incredible. She is the chair of the South Carolina ACOG, which is the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. She is an incredible resource to us, to legislators, to the public on issues involving maternal mortality, abortion, reproductive health, contraception. She is my favorite doctor in the world. And for that reason, I don't go to her because I just can't imagine. Ladies, y'all know. But she has been at the State House. She's run for office here in Spartanburg. What's wrong with Spartanburg people, I don't know, but we'll deal with that, won't we? We're here today to deal with that. And then next to Dr. Bingham is my partner in crime, Ashley Lido. Ashley is the Senior Director of Policy and Government Relations for the Women's Rights and Empowerment Network, also known as WREN. Ashley has been working longer than any of us on these, well, at the State House in the political sense on reproductive health issues for South Carolina. She has passed positive, proactive legislation such as the lactation bill, pregnancy accommodations, paid family leave, birth control access. She gets it done, and I couldn't have a better partner than she. We are going to get this ball rolling, and if you've got questions, if you'll hold them to the end, we'll be glad to take those. I'm just going to kind of get us going by laying the groundwork. It has been 1 year and some months since that fateful Dobbs decision last June, which overturned Roe v. Wade, a precedent that stood for nearly 50 years that guaranteed a woman's right to choose an abortion until viability. The states were not able to ban abortion based on the promise of Roe v. Wade. We saw it coming. All of us saw it coming, and people were like, what? I can't believe they did that. We knew it was coming. The minute that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died and they replaced her, we knew we were gone forever. I think we saw it with Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, but with Ruth Bader Ginsburg dying just before the election, we were doomed. And right after that, what happens? They take up this bill out of Mississippi. And we all so often say in South Carolina, thank God for Mississippi. Now we can say, to hell with Mississippi. Because they put us in this place. But here we are just 11 days after a big election, right? Democrats have a winning message, and abortion is a winning message. We saw that in Ohio. Let's hear it for the red states. Even in Ohio, voters came out in droves and said, no, we don't like the government messing in our business. Even people that in polls after the voting said, I'm a Republican, I'm pro-life, but I don't want the Republican in my business, in my bedroom, in my doctor's office. And they voted to support abortion rights. I know that a referendum is top of mind for a lot of people, and we're going to dig into that today. But just to get us started, I'm going to throw out the first question here. And let's see. Ashley.
Mic check 1.
Yeah, make sure your mics are working. You've been on the front lines of abortion longer than any of us. Can you tell us how we got here? What in the world has happened in South Carolina?
How we got here. The abridged version is that there are many folks who put too much faith in the judiciary and did not focus on state level elections. That's just the fact. We all need to look at our state and local elections because that is how we got here, is that was the tactic the other side used. They got enough power, and then they made sure that they insulated that power via gerrymandering. And now we have a majority that is kowtowing to a very, very small primary voter. Okay, most of our elections here are won and lost in that primary electorate. And so we have open primaries. I'm a nonpartisan person, so I'll say, you know, you're gerrymandered out. Go look at what the Republican primary is going to do. If you care about issues, go see what those folks are and hold those two accountable. And then we'll go out to the general. But it's important in this state. How do we get here so that we're under a ban? Oh, we fought like hell in South Carolina. We were one of the last states. So I just want to know, we didn't just go down without a fight. This was years and years and years desperately for them trying to fight against little old us. Some of the Republican lawmakers say the powerful liberal lobby. Most here right now, Bill Ford, Vicky Alito are the powerful liberal lobby they're talking about. So watch out, baby. But they tried for total bans. They've been trying for enacting personhood for years and years and years. And the ways that we have won that is people have been turning out, people have been telling their stories, and people have been mobilizing in community. When we have abortion bans, thousands of people speak out every single time we put out calls to action. So there is movement across the state in support of abortion. I like to say that abortion is more popular than your favorite politician because it actually polls higher than most people do. But this abortion ban that we're living under happened during a special. So these folks that were sitting up together, they fought all session to ensure that an abortion ban did not pass after the state Supreme Court had enshrined that we had a right to privacy in January. Well, they changed the court. We haven't seen that before. Oh wait, that's what happened at the federal level too. They changed our court in South Carolina, and immediately the Republican majority put up another abortion ban, and they didn't get it done during session. So just as like a fun fact, like it's not an easy thing to do. We have it by a couple votes. We can win. We can get it back. It's not foregone. So we live under a 6-week ban now because they called a special session. They even called in Senator Goldfinch in from his active duty from the National Guard to get that one vote back. And so, yes, we have it, and our state Supreme Court overturned their own precedent. So we need to be holistically thinking if we care about a issue. So say abortion's not your thing. I hope we convince you that it should be. But if it's not, you need to look at judicial reform. That's going to be a hot topic this session. You need to look at your local elections and the ways that folks are getting appointed into places, because that's what they're doing. So if it's a winning tactic and they just won, why not just go ahead and use the thing that works? So that's how we got here. And I hope we can dig in more about how we're going to win together, because we are going to win.
Ashley, ooh, powerful. Ashley mentioned elections. I think Democrats, especially in South Carolina, have not felt like they've had the power to control the state house. As a result, all of our efforts in past years, I think, has really focused on the White House, the Senate, and federal congressional seats, maybe even local seats. But we have not focused on the state house the way Republicans have. And because we were fighting for the White House, Republicans were fighting for the state house so that they could control the districts. We are in presidential politics a 55-45 state, meaning it's generally 55% Republican, 45% Democratic. But our state house looks nothing at all like that. The Republicans have a supermajority in the House. We're one away in the Senate from Republicans having a supermajority. That's not as critical right now because we don't have a Democratic governor. But where it does matter is being able to filibuster and prevent a vote from happening. So we've got to hold all of our offices and flip some. Moving on and talking a little bit about the Supreme Court, Ashley mentioned the 6-week ban that was bad by the Supreme Court in January, and bill by the Supreme Court in August, just 7 months later. Representative Henderson Myers, you're an attorney. Can you explain this Supreme Court to us and how a Supreme Court can find a law unconstitutional 1 minute and just 7 months later unconstitutional?
Sure, I can do that. Well, the simple answer is that there was a change in the membership of the South Carolina Supreme Court. Kay Hearn, who was a female Supreme Court justice, retired. There was a Supreme Court election in the legislature. I happen to be co-chair of the Legislative Black Caucus Judicial Selection Committee. And, we interviewed everyone. There was 1 male, 2 females. We found everybody to be extremely qualified, including the 2 females. The legislature decided that they were going to elect the 1 male. And so now we already had 4 members on there who were male. So now we've added a 5th. So we are the only state in this United States that has an all-male Supreme Court. Yes. Yes. And we have, in terms of diversity, we only have 1 Black justice who will be retiring in December. And so there is going to be an effort, I'm sure, by our Republican-dominated and male-dominated legislature.
And white dominated.
And white-dominated, yes, to select and elect another white male. So we stand in some danger, but we always fight, even if we have to filibuster 48 hours like we did for the abortion bill. We will continue to fight. And so that's what's going on. And that's why there was a difference.
And that's why we have to pay attention to who our legislators are, because South Carolina is still one of the few states where legislators elect the judges. They're looking at judicial reform now. I'm not sure how I feel about the public electing judges, because we haven't proven that we make the best decisions about who we elect. I think it would just become a partisan fight, but I'm not sure that what we're doing works either. So more to come on that, but pay attention to what they're saying about justices. Representative Dillard, right after Roe v. Wade was overturned in June of 2022, the speaker formed an ad hoc committee that both you and Representative Henderson Myers sat on. What was that experience like? Because it was a doozy, right? What did y'all do?
It absolutely was a doozy, and thank you for having me on the panel, and it's great to be among these friends and colleagues in the fight. It was really interesting. So when the speaker convened the study committee, our charge was to look at how the decision of the Supreme Court was going to affect South Carolina, right? But all along it was a ploy, right? And so we were working in the summer. It was hot, y'all. And I want to thank anybody who came and testified during that day. It was probably over 100 degrees in Columbia that day. It was record heat. Ashley's telling us. People were wrapped around the building, and I just can't tell you how much we appreciated that. But I think that was setting up the plan as we have moved forward now over a year. But what happened that was so disappointing, we did not listen to all of the people that came. People told us how this was going to affect South Carolina, how it was going to affect their lives. The physicians told us how it was going to affect their practice, the decisions that they have to make in trying to save lives and have major concern for their patients' health in the process. And so we heard from everybody, and I thank you, Vicky, and I thank you as well for being with us in the fight. But clearly it was orchestrated. There was no dialogue among us when the bill did come out, which is unusual because most bills need, most study committees, we give a recommendation to a committee. We can draft, some language for a bill, but it should receive a hearing and a subcommittee hearing. And it did that, but it was in swift order, right? The deck was already stacked. And so the good thing about that to me was the public engagement around the bill. And it showed that we can fight, we do fight, and we must keep fighting, right? So that was the beginning of a long year. We started in the summer with abortion. We started our session last year with abortion, and we ended our session last year in overtime talking about abortion.
That's right. Thank you, Representative Dillard. The legislative session is supposed to be part-time from January to late May, early June. But because of the ad hoc committee, we went year-round. So from January all through the end of the year, starting up in January again until June this year, it has been 18 months straight. Now, you talk about stir crazy. We were all stir crazy because when you're fighting an abortion ban, it's tense. People are ugly. Legislators say really rude things about women, about people who can give birth, about people who can't give birth, but might have a uterus. They talk ugly about just telling us to keep our legs closed. And I hope you will pardon the bluntness of some of these conversations, but this is what some people say. Representative Henderson Myers, you were on that ad hoc committee, and then helped lead the fight in the legislature this year on the 6-week ban. Tell us what that floor fight was like, the filibuster led by the women, led by the Democrats. And tell them about doing that great video y'all did.
Okay. All right. Yes, we were very intent on fighting the bill that was up. We spent hours and hours before we even got on the floor to filibuster. We put up over 700 amendments, which is unheard of. And in doing so, we were able to filibuster, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, for 48 hours. And so we were tired. We were constantly being bombarded with stupid questions, maneuvering tactics by the Republicans to try to get the amendments defeated, or for us not to even be able to talk about the amendment and address it as we went up. And we all took turns going up to the podium. Now, one of the things we did before we got to that point was the video that Vicky's talking about. We each took boxes and we had all of the amendments, and we each took boxes and marched in with our amendments, set them down in the chambers and walked back out. And I think we were marching into a song by Taylor Swift.
Look what you made me do.
And so that was video, and it was put on social media, and it got over 1 million hits. So if nobody knew what the women in South Carolina was doing, then they knew at that point that we were really in that fight, and we were going to fight until the end. And so we will fight again. This issue is not dead. It's going to come back up again, and we're going to continue to fight.
There's no question that our folks knew they were outnumbered, and that they stood little chance in stopping an abortion ban just simply because of the numbers in the House. But what they could do is stay on computer screens and ETV and give the people time to see what was happening, time to respond, time to show up. And even some of their colleagues, Democratic colleagues, were saying, y'all, we just need to go to halls and have a drink. So y'all sit down. And the women are like, oh no, you stay here. We're fighting. And the State House was filled with people there to show up and show some love for the legislators. And if you ever get a chance, if you didn't watch any of that debate, it's still in archives. Go back and watch. All of the Democratic members did a really great job, but you just can't say enough for the women. And I have never been more proud to stand with them than I was after that debate. And it stands to be at least mentioned is that back during the summer, right after the ad hoc committee, the Democrats' strategy actually did result in the abortion ban bill being defeated. And the Republicans went, oh my gosh, quick, we've got to regroup and come back with a different bill. And so they pulled some sneaky maneuvers and were able to put in that 6-week ban. But we were able to win by strategy. But we had to make sure that the public understood why Democrats were voting like they were. It's strategic. Well, and we're talking about the politics of this. And what we try to tell people is that abortion and reproductive health care is not political. It has been made political because of partisanship. It is health care, and it is a medical crisis for our doctors and patients in South Carolina and throughout the South especially. Dr. Bingham, what have you seen on the front lines of this fight with your patients, with your colleagues, with medical students? What are you hearing and what are you dealing with as a physician?
Thank you very much, Vicki, and thank you for having me on this panel. These are four of my favorite people to be in the fight with, and I could not do the work that I do outside of the exam room and the OR and the delivery room without these four people backing me up. So thank you very much, and another round of applause for them. Let me reiterate what Vicki was saying, that abortion is healthcare. Every day of the practice that I am in, we know that 1 in 4 women at some point in their lifetime will seek out abortion care. If any silver lining has come of what we've been going through, what we have recognized across the medical specialties is that other people inside of medicine besides OBGYNs are recognizing, oh, this affects my cardiology practice. This affects my family practice. This affects my orthopedics practice. Because when people cannot access abortion care as they need to, it affects the trajectory of their health. It affects their economic mobility. It affects their educational opportunities. And so we see this affecting not only our patients, and when we were talking a minute ago about like the scramble that we were in going year round, when it was making us crazy, it was making our patients crazy because they did not know, is today the day I can't access the healthcare that I need for the particular clinical situation that I'm in? So our patients were absolutely desperate to have care. So one of the things that we have found during this time is that we have more people trying to access care in ways that they are unable to, and it is making them feel like they need to leave the state of South Carolina, which I think is just abominable for the state of healthcare in South Carolina. I want to be able to take care of my patients according to standard of care, and we can't do that right now in South Carolina. And what that means for our patients is that we have to find them pathways out of South Carolina. What that means for our practices and amongst physicians is that it is fracturing our physician practices because there are some of us that are more willing to be risk absorbing, and there are some people that are very risk averse. And when I say what's the risk to the physicians, if you don't know, if you are found to be procuring or abetting an abortion that is not part of one of the exceptions in South Carolina at this time, it is 2 years in jail as a felony and $10,000 fine, plus possible civil charges. So you can imagine when people's livelihoods or reputations are threatened as physicians, they back away from even the possibility or the specter of criminalization. And the way this is affecting our trainees is that they are not getting the appropriate guidance on what is medically ethical on how to consult people and counsel them when they're faced with medical crisis for whatever the reason is, and they feel like they need abortion care because they're many times being told not to discuss it at this point. And then again, there's training involved. And right now we are in the plans of sending our residents out of state to get the abortion training that they need, to complete the abortion training that they need to follow the ACGME standards. So this has a very chilling effect on healthcare in the moment for the patient and certainly for the physicians having to make life and death decisions for people, but also for the long term on how we are training the next generation of physicians and how physicians possibly wanting to come to South Carolina look and go, I'm not an OBGYN, but if they're letting the legislatures tell them how to practice medicine, when 75 organizations, including the AMA, say abortion is healthcare, I don't know if that's a state that seems very kind and a good place to practice and put up my shingle as a physician. And so we're having a hard time recruiting physicians to the state of all specialties. And so what I'd like to say to you as you're thinking about this issue and moving forward, I know just looking at the number of people in here that many people have been touched by the fact that people have abortions and need abortions and that abortion is healthcare. But as you're thinking about this, please think about it not just in the context of what that's happening to that patient now, but the long term in South Carolina and the need to stay in this fight with us.
And if I might just interject a moment with what Dr. Bingham is saying. I don't know if very many of you all know, but I have a daughter who's a physician. She practices emergency medicine in Chicago. And when she was in her residency program at the University of Chicago, she started at a community health clinic. So she's very community minded. And so before this whole abortion thing came up, with the legislature trying to infringe upon women's rights, I almost was successfully telling her she needed to come to South Carolina, to come back home. Well, when this happened, she said, no, Mom. She said, I can't come. She says, I won't be able to practice medicine. She says, our judgment will be devalued. And she says, I'm not going to risk my livelihood. I'm not going to risk being put in jail and being a felon. She says, so Mom, you'll just have to come up to Chicago. So I wasn't happy about that, but just wanted to reiterate what Dr. Bingham said.
And that's an important thing to remember. People are saying, well, why aren't doctors just doing abortions anyway and not telling? Well, doctors aren't an island to themselves. They have staff. They may have nurses with them. They may have, depending on the procedure, an anesthesiologist. So they're not just risking their livelihood, they're risking livelihoods of all the staff around them. And in addition to jail and taking every dollar you have accumulated, they will also take your medical license. So we can't ask doctors to go to jail if we're not willing to at least go show up and vote, you know, and that's what it will take to get that changed. And we're going to talk more about the medicine of this all as we continue our conversation. But what we can't do is leave out what happened in the Senate. We've got the House members here, and God bless these women for the work they've done. But we also have to show a shout out to the sister senators from South Carolina. And Ashley, for those who haven't followed this like we have, what did those women do, and why is what they did so important?
All right, so we're using the term sister senators. There are 5 current female senators. There's a special election. I'll have another one soon. But they are 3 Republican women, 1 independent, 1 Democrat. Okay, Mia McLeod and Margie Bright Matthews have been champions for abortion access and really anything that we all care about. They have been on the front lines, all these pieces. And so I want to make sure that we acknowledge that the Republicans are the ones that keep getting all the praise because they finally did the right thing. And also that coalition is not just them. It's actually them having open ears to the leadership of a Margie Bright Matthews and a Mia McLeod. So I want to honor the fact that those women have been leading in that chamber. So the sister senators came together. They had differing votes before. So Katrina Shealy as a Republican and Henry Gutchinson actually throughout the course of the special session that we talked about, that ad hoc that ran summer through November of 22. They were we're okay with the 6-week ban. They just weren't okay with the total ban. But as that coalition got stronger and stronger and they had more experience with all the hearings and the public communication and the storytelling and listening, the uniqueness of the sister senators is that they're willing to work together, open their ears and listen. And by the time we got to the end, that special session where we did end up with a 6-week ban, all of them have moved their position up higher. So every female senator, well, the Democrats have always been at, you have the right to choose. I'm not picking what time you get to actually lose that right. We believe you have the right. The Republicans are now, they put up an amendment to even put it up to 12 weeks. We as a movement moved their opinion on abortion bans from 6 to 12 just by all the mobilization and the work. So that is unique. And it does take courage from them because they took heat from their caucuses. They are going to get primaried by the right. The Republican Senate caucus potentially is not helping them in their re-elections, depending on the way they're interacting right now. So they're getting national recognition of what it looks like to actually listen to constituencies when they're telling you what they want. And that's why they're getting such high praise as Republicans, because also folks really want to move Republican colleagues into that direction. Democrats have always been doing the right things and listening in that. The Democratic women, I'll make sure I say, have been doing that. And we need more folks to open their ears, to work in coalition, not us versus them. And that's why they get such high recognition. And they will continue that coalition together. And they've also been trying to work with the Great Eight across the hall to build out the coalition and hopefully get y'all some Republican colleagues to stand with you next time.
Oh, thanks for that reminder. We did have the word the Great Eight for the 8 women, 8 House Democratic women that stood strong. So sister senators, the Great Eight, love the work of the women. So I know this is a topic I am hit with every single day. Ashley, the sister senators, and I know some House members will as well, plan to introduce legislation to call for a ballot referendum and let the people vote. What do you know about is happening on that? What you know about that?
So Senator, I keep saying Senator Bright Matthews, but she has her meeting on this. She already does have a placeholder bill to put something on the ballot. And it was part of the amendment strategy of these folks during their filibuster on the House side. This conversation is not new, but the uniqueness of South Carolina is that the legislature has really made it so that they have all the power, right? There's not a petition signature that we can do that automatically puts this referendum on the ballot. This is how the other states have done it. The movement has gotten the petition signatures from the constituencies, validated those, and then it auto put on the ballot. And then the anti-abortion politicians tried to thwart that. Well, the calls coming from inside the House here in South Carolina, if we want anything on the ballot, the legislature has to greenlight it. So this same legislature that wants the total abortion ban that we have to fight tooth and nail, knows that the general populace wants abortion, but potentially their powers that be, whoever they're kowtowing to, don't. And so they say, oh, well, we're not going to do your bill to actually put it on the ballot. You know what you can do? Just go vote, because you voting for me is acknowledgement of whether or not you want abortion to be banned or not. They will gaslight us into kind of that diversion instead of being accountable to the fact that they do refuse to let voters specifically vote on that issue. So what I know is that it is going to be put up. It's already an active bill in session. And if we do not hold them accountable to pushing that forward, and we let them gaslight us over here about their general elections and their primary elections, we're not going to get it on the ballot. But again, I believe we can win, because if we are constantly pressuring them as constituents, no matter who your legislator is, you're constantly asking to go ahead and answer that specific question. Pressure works, and especially if it's constant and forceful pressure, and we can get them to potentially say yes to it. We can if we work hard, but it's going to take working really, really hard.
And Vicky, if I may, I'll just add, as part of our Democratic strategy, with the Great Eight, I like to call us the Mighty Eight too. Spencer Wetmore, one of our Democratic House women, put up an amendment for a referendum more than once on the House floor. And that part of that strategy was trying to get them on the record of saying, we don't want the voters to have a choice. Just what Ashley said. And so, as expected, they voted it down. Now, fast forward, last week, I don't know if Rosalind, you received a call, but the Post and Courier is, I don't know if whose side they're on, but they're part of applying, I think, some pressure. So I received a survey that said, would you be in favor of a referendum for abortion rights? Quite naturally, I said yes. That was my answer. And I said, well, how are you doing with my other colleagues? They said, well, they're not answering the phone. I said, well, imagine that. But elected official not answering the phone, right? So, there is some movement. And I think as we move forward, we need more people in this coalition space to apply pressure in different kinds of ways. So stay tuned.
And Vicky, if I might,
Absolutely.
thank you, Representative.
Jump
Dillon.
in.
If I might, in terms of a coalition, I went to a meeting about a year ago at a Democratic supporters house. That was a gathering of women. And I can tell you that there were about 300 women there. And I would say overwhelmingly Republican women and Democratic women. And I can tell you that women are galvanized on this issue. Republican women, there are a lot of Republican women. I have them coming up to me all the time, telling me, we want to have something done. We want you to vote against this abortion ban. We need to have our women able to have an abortion if they need one. And a lot of them have come up to me who are pro-choice? No, not pro-choice. Pro-life.
There you go.
There you go, anti-choice. And they say, I'm pro-life, but I think a woman ought to have a right to choose what happens to her body. And so I think that at some point, we may get this referendum, and I am sure that our Republican colleagues do not want that to happen, because I'm sure many of their wives and daughters and mothers feel the same way that most women feel, and say they can feel the pulse of what's going on here. And so we have got to fight. We're going to continue to fight to get that referendum on the ballot so that women can be heard and their voices can be heard, so that it will register finally to our Republicans that women need to have a choice.
And because my CEO threw a wet blanket on me, I'm going to give you all a warning so you can get to work now. The Ohio referendum, just on the pro-reproductive health abortion access side, cost $40 million. The first referendums after Dobbs was in Kansas, which really scared the hell out of Republicans, right? Red Kansas, conservative, religious Kansas. Turns out that abortion bans are deeply unpopular everywhere among all religions, party affiliations, age, race, gender. They're just unpopular. And as Representative Henderson Myers has said, the people will often tell us that I'm against abortion personally. I am deeply opposed to government telling me what I can do in my doctor's office, in my bedroom, in my home, among my family, with my body. So that's our winning message: freedom, privacy. That resonates with all voters, and that will be how we have to win that battle.
Vicky, can I add something? Can I add
Yes,
something? I
please.
was going to say, I know the OBGYNs in Ohio that were leading that charge. And I know the pushback they got from places they did not expect to get pushback from, even allies, because they said, this is too expensive, can't be done. And they said, no, the people want this, the people need this. We have this option in this pathway. There is no not do. We are going to do. And they did it. And I think if it comes to here in South Carolina, we'll be able to do it too.
And it was a small group, believe it or not, of chiropractors that started to get that ball rolling. And they formed Ohio Physicians for Reproductive Health. And they led that charge and said, we're moving, we're charging forward. Y'all join us or get out of our way. And everybody got on board. And that's what it will take here. Senator Shane Massey from Edgefield, Aiken area, is the majority leader, the Republican majority leader of the Senate. And he said, when a reporter asked him about a ballot referendum, he said, why should we put it on the ballot? We've already won. We got what we wanted. Well, there's your answer in a nutshell. They got what they wanted. The hell with the rest of us. See, this gets me cussing, so y'all just have to forgive me. And I'm just noticing all the shirts that say Democrats care. I love that. Those are awesome. Dr. Bingham. What did somebody say? Yes, we do. All right. Dr. Bingham, what can we do to protect doctors so that they can use, so that you can use the skills, the years of experience, and the expertise you have to protect patients? What is this long-term impact of an abortion ban on overall health in South Carolina?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that what we're doing right now as physicians is we are trying to define better the parameters around standard of care medicine and how they don't line up with the current law and how that is hurting women every day in South Carolina. Philosophically, we're not going to be on the same places where the legislators are, and we recognize that, but they are so far out of line with standard of care treatments and how we take care of women. In the law, as you've probably seen, there is language that basically they want us to wait till somebody is on death's door before we intervene. That is not how we practice medicine. We don't wait till somebody is about to die or have irreversible organ damage before we decide to move forward with the appropriate treatments. We recognize that they're in a condition or state that may not happen for several days or weeks, but we're not going to wait till that happens. And so we are trying to claw back a little bit of those standard of care therapies and have some consensus amongst the hospital systems. And that's ongoing with attorneys right now so that we can practice standard of care medicine. The other is talking a little bit about I mentioned before about our trainees. We are making sure that the OBGYN trainees in the state have access to training outside of the state if they can't get it here. We have 2 Bryan residency programs, which is abortion and contraception programs and curriculum inside of our residency programs. And we're doing everything we can to provide that continued curriculum inside of South Carolina accordance to the law. But we are very cognizant of making sure that our trainees get that, or if we can't get it here, that they go outside of the state to do that. What people can do themselves, because so many people are affected by abortion and the need for that, or the lack of being able to obtain that currently, is you can tell your stories. I can give you facts, figures, and demonstrate how this is hurting the practice of medicine patients in South Carolina. But what really moves legislators is the stories. People are hardwired to understand a story and relate to another person. And so your stories about abortion care or your neighbor's lack of ability to attain abortion or their serious condition is really powerful. And the way you can do that is you can reach out to one of us. You can reach out to one of the local reporters. But if you want to do it anonymously, there are ways that has been set up. There is a website called Care Post Row that comes out of San Francisco. It's a website that you can get onto and tell your story anonymously, and they are separating them out. You're taking out all identifying information and they're separating them out by state. So we can have a sort of a repository of those stories. And there's another one that we have here in South Carolina that we're participating in called We Count. You do have to go through a physician to tell your story through We Count, but that is also another powerful way to tell your story. So I would encourage you, and it's so hard as a physician because we take patient confidentiality so seriously, and we recognize that, what I'm doing for the 1000th time, you may be doing for the very first time and only time you'll do in your life. And I don't want to ask you, hey, can you step outside of your situation and tell your story to help other people who you may never get to meet? But that's kind of where we are right now. So telling your story helps us to have ammunition with the legislators.
And I'm sure y'all have heard, thank you, Dr. Bingham, some of the horror stories, the ones, once they've made national news. You heard about the woman in Louisiana who had a fetal anomaly. Her baby had no skull, and Louisiana would not permit her to get an abortion. She had to go to New York. A woman in Oklahoma was told, went to the emergency room because she was bleeding, and she was not halfway into her pregnancy, a wanted pregnancy. And they told her because there was still a heartbeat, they couldn't help her. She's hemorrhaging. They told her to wait in her car until she flatlined or bled out and then call them. Now, that's not medicine. There are a group of women in Texas, including an OBGYN who was pregnant and had to go out of state. So these are just some of the stories we're hearing, and we're hearing them in South Carolina too. Ashley, does a 6-week ban in South Carolina mean abortions have stopped? What are patients doing?
If you believe that you are pregnant, you should go immediately to a trusted healthcare provider. A trusted healthcare provider. There are shell clinics that say that they will counsel you. You need to go to a Planned Parenthood, a Green Lawrence clinic, or a trusted OBGYN like Dr. Bingham, so that you are not coerced or potentially surveilled by a religious organization. But it is not illegal for you to outright. There is no total abortion ban in South Carolina. It's a ban when you detect fetal tones. Now that does happen very early on, which is why I say, when in doubt, just go and get that diagnosis so they can potentially counsel you on your options. I'm not telling somebody that when they find out they're pregnant, should automatically choose abortion. You should go get your options and understand what that's going to mean for you in your life and make an informed choice. But there are exceptions within the law. But again, you need to go to a provider who potentially is willing to risk their practice for those exceptions, because they did make them very stringent. And we're finding that most people in South Carolina are not able to get access to care because that people don't have consistent menstrual cycles. It's just actually pretty rare that everybody's on a 28-day cycle. And the anti-choice crowd likes to say that, oh, if you just take birth control, then you'll be fine because you won't get pregnant. There's no birth control that's 100%. Birth control fails. And that's okay. Like, not all medicine works 100% all the time. And you may become pregnant. So birth control is not the substitute for abortion. So again, abortions will be necessary. Most folks in South Carolina who need an abortion are potentially being sent other locations. And if that frightens you and you like are really wanting to do something, we do have what's known as abortion funds in South Carolina, and they're giving that tactical support to those folks who have to travel, but it costs a lot of money. So if you are feeling some type of ways, you should see Mercurius Bird at some point today. He's over here. Dave, he's the new treasurer for the Palmetto State Abortion Fund. If you set up a recurring donation, even if you bought the abortion fund a cup of coffee, $5 every single month, you potentially would be helping somebody in South Carolina get access to transportation, childcare, access out of state. So yeah, you can get an abortion, but it's real, real hard.
Yeah, if you look like a legislator's wife or daughter, what are you going to do? You're going to hop on a plane, go to New York, get an abortion, do a little shopping, and come home. It's the people who are already at risk and suffer the most from lack of equity in healthcare or access to it, live in rural areas that are already at a disadvantage. They're the ones that suffer the most. Those are the people that are most disadvantaged by all of this. But legislators don't care about that either. Representative Henderson Myers, I know you want to add something.
Yes, I just wanted to add in terms of a few things that I wanted to talk about. First of all, in terms of fiscal responsibility, you know, Republicans are always talking about how they are fiscally conservative. Well, I want you to know that as of February of this year, Republicans had spent more than $1.2 million on this abortion issue, bringing it up and fighting our efforts. So, you know, you can't have your cake and eat it too. But that's one of the things that they have done with this abortion issue. But I wanted to also say that just in terms of rights and women's rights and other people's rights, there have been some good things that have happened. And there's been some things that I have championed and passed through the legislature with the help of Ashley at Wren and other organizations, and she might want to talk about that just for a quick second. But how many of you all know, have you heard of the Pump Act? Okay, great. All right, and so you've heard of the South Carolina Nursing Mothers Act too, Lactation Support Act, I'm sorry. Okay, well, you may not know, but Wren and several others helped me to get that through the South Carolina legislature. It passed unanimously in the House, unanimously in the Senate, and it was signed by the governor immediately. And so what that does is, I believe that you had mentioned it early on in the beginning, is it allows nursing mothers to be able to go back to work, take paid time to express their breast milk, and it gives them a private place to do it so that they don't have to feel humiliated doing it in a bathroom stall. So that's a big win for women, not only in South Carolina, but for women in this country. And it all started here in South Carolina. There's a few other things I wanted to mention in terms of some other wins, in terms of pregnant women giving birth in jails. At one point, these women were shackled to beds when they were giving birth. And so I was a part of a bill that these women now no longer have to be shackled. And so we felt that that was humiliating and inhumane. And so women inmates now can have that done. There's also, we now have tax-free menstrual products for women. Pardon me? Yes, yes, we did. We did. And then I don't know if many of you all know, but South Carolina is now a safe haven for domestic violence victims that are coming here from out of state. You can go and get your name changed, your address, all your information changed. You go to, you apply to family court. We have done a 6-month waiting period that you have to be here in South Carolina, because at one point we didn't have any kind of waiting period. So that was a bill that I introduced and we got passed. And so that now you have that 6-month period, but for domestic violence victims coming here from out of state, that requirement is waived. And they can also make sure that all of their information is kept under lock and key. And so they don't have to, so that if their aggressors are trying to come into the state and follow them and find them, they can't. So we have made some gains. I just wanted you all to know that.
That's awesome. I want to give everybody a chance to give some closing remarks, but I believe we have some questions from the audience, and I want to give audience members a chance to ask a question before we close out here. Michelle, there's a question back there. Michelle's got a microphone. Talk loud.
Testing.
There you go.
Good morning and thank you for coming out here. I'll speak quietly.
Just move it.
My name is Bill Kimler. I'm the chair of the Greenwood County Democratic Party, and I am running for State House District 13 against anti-freedom Representative John McCravy. My question to you is this: as you're engaging people across all the spectrums, what's the biggest piece of misinformation that you constantly run into that you're doing battle against?
One of the things that I can say is that Democrats want abortion up until birth and after birth. That's not a thing. And I think Dr. Bingham may be able to express the truth on that one. But that's the misinformation I hear a lot about, or that Democrats just don't want any bans. I don't want bans, but not because I want people to just carry around a pregnancy. And if you've ever been pregnant, that's not a cakewalk. And decide the day before I'm due to deliver that I'm tired of this. That's not a thing. You can't get an abortion at that point. No doctor would do that. And nobody's ever asked to do that. So that type of misinformation, I just don't think that government ought to set some arbitrary week, that truly ought to be a medical decision between the patient and the doctor.
If you've not had the opportunity to ask an OBGYN, here's your chance. I will tell you, I have been delivering babies since 2001 in South Carolina. So I've had private practice partners. I have had my academic practice partners. I have taken care of tens of thousands of women as they have. I've personally delivered thousands of women. That has literally never happened. That is not a thing. If somebody needs to have an early delivery for some reason after viability, we don't do abortion. That's not a thing. Like, you have a delivery essentially. There's some extenuating circumstances, but having, like, people don't stay pregnant until 36 weeks and be like, I've changed my mind. That's not a thing that happens. So that is a very false narrative that people say to get a visceral response out of people. And it's not a logical thing to say because it's not something that happens. The other thing I want to say, that the thing what I come across all the time is that people have this very particular idea about who seeks to have an abortion. And it is wrong. What we find is that abortion is very common across different socioeconomic groups. Oftentimes, many times, majority of times, people already have a child, all the different age groups. So it is not just particular to one socio-demographic or to an age group. that this is a very common thing that happens. Like I mentioned earlier, 1 in 4 women have this happen to them. And so those are the two things, if I had to think of that I come across most mostly, that is a false narrative.
I would add to that, we don't need to be labeled as Democrats, and we allow Republicans to do that to us all the time. They call us baby killers and all other kind of names, and it's real because it showed up in one of our colleagues' election in the PD. We don't kill babies, but Republicans don't help children thrive either. And so we've got to push back on that, and there are countless facts that we have that our kids aren't thriving here in South Carolina. So you want people to have children, but you don't want to help take care of them once they're here. And that opens a door for more public policy, like Rosalind has shared with you today. So now when we come up with these bills that do support our families, do support our children, we need your help to help push them, because now we've got them in the corner. Help these children, help these families.
Is there any other misinformation y'all come
I would
across?
just say, you were mentioning about wanting bans or not wanting bans. I also do not want bans. Medical care is so individualized and nuanced to somebody's particular clinical situation that they need to be able to make those decisions in concert with their physician, their family, and how they make those kind of like decisions. This is not something that belongs in the legislature. And when people say, well, when would you want a ban? Why do you feel like you need a ban? Do you not trust that women have the best interest of themselves and their families at heart? I do. I've seen it.
Bill, if I may, was your question about abortion stigma and the abortion misinformation, or in general while trying to do this fight, what our biggest uphill battle misinformation is? Okay, because I want to applaud you for running for office in that district, because the largest misinformation kind of feeling that I encounter, that I think is the biggest barrier, is apathy from people who don't believe that we can do hard things. You are trying something that is hard, and also we can do hard things, and that's the misinformation I think that's getting in our way from doing it. We are the majority. All the polling shows us. We just have to work together to make it happen, and that's what I think I encounter the most.
Listen to that girl. All right, our favorite, Matt.
Hi, y'all know me. Longtime listener, first time caller. I want to remind y'all, first of all, this is a women or birth giving majority issue, but we wouldn't, as someone who has happily procured reproductive services, they wouldn't be in that position if it weren't for a sperm giver, as my daughters call it. And so I just want to remind you about a little sign that I carry around that says ejaculate responsibly. First of all, so there's that. This is probably starting with Dr. Bingham. My issue, or what I see a lot, is the ripple effects, such as when these bills come down, it's not only the physicians of all kinds, it's also, you understand that any women's healthcare issue research, like pharmacy, any type of medical healthcare research for women or women's main issues, that is, companies that are trying to develop these technologies, medicines, and devices, that goes away. Why are you going to do research if you're potentially going to be jailed because one of your participants dies, who happened to be pregnant? So it's an issue with that. But on that note, speaking of ripple effects, Dr. Bingham, would you comment on healthcare deserts in South Carolina and give our stats?
Yeah, certainly. That seems like a two-part question. And the healthcare deserts is what she's discussing, is there are places in South Carolina that they don't have access to primary care to begin with, but in particularly the OBGYN services, so that people can access contraception, can also have the services of an OBGYN if they do get pregnant. And we have 14 counties right now in South Carolina, and that's not looking better because we've also closed 4 of our labor and deliveries this past year because we have lost people for OBGYN to other places. So this is a growing problem that is very close to what I do. So I see it and I know this information, but is farther away and kind of a different concentric circle from this very visceral issue that we're talking about. But it actually has a ripple effect downstream for the practice of medicine. The other thing that we're finding, that's sort of the beginning part of your question, Mac, is that we have patients who are unable to obtain abortion services who find themselves in these other clinical situations that they don't know what to do. And I'll give you a very good recent example. Somebody who was diagnosed with a recent cancer, and she could not have surgical services to do anything about the cancer because she was pregnant, and she could not have medical oncology for chemotherapy because she was pregnant. Those two physicians don't want to take on the risk because she's pregnant. So normally what you would do then is have a termination, but she's in South Carolina. She's not currently dying or in risk of death. There's no risk to a irreversible organ failure at the moment. So she had to go out of state to get that done. And then she stayed out of state. And because of that experience, she will be staying out of state. And this is what we're seeing time and time again in South Carolina, because these are two physician groups that before were not exposed to this issue, but we're having cardiologists, I mentioned that example before, who are like, I've got this patient whose heart is not good. They shouldn't get pregnant. They did get pregnant. We would like your services to help her stay alive. Can you help us? No, we can't in that regard until she actually has heart failure. So that person would have to go out of state. And these things repeat themselves in all the different varieties you can imagine inside of medicine. We have people unable to obtain medications that could be teratogenic, which means harmful to a fetus, even when they're not pregnant, but they're of reproductive age, because currently their physicians are like, I don't think I want to take the risk because they could get pregnant and then I might be liable to something happening. That conversation just didn't happen before. So this has a chilling effect on the practice of medicine.
And that's an important thing, y'all. She's not pregnant, but she's of childbearing years, and she is being denied medication. I get calls about that a lot. Michelle has another question over here.
I don't have a question. I just want to make a comment, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm Tommy Green. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, and I live in the community known as Union Heights. And I'm so happy to be here because I'm able to take back this information because we're well needed in my community. Thank you all for doing a fantastic job.
Thank you so much. Thank you for making the drive up, all of you for coming.
To sit here, thinking about it takes two people for a woman to get pregnant, but what about how many men are getting vasectomies?
I see some hands. How nice.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what this lady said. We actually put up some amendments. Yeah. During the abortion debate, and Representative Diller can tell you that put some restrictions on men, requiring them to have vasectomies in certain conditions. Of course, it didn't pass, but we're doing everything we can.
They're going to tell us what we got to do, but don't touch my stuff. Literally.
Thank you all so much. My name is Amy Boland, and I am so honored to be here today just to hear your stories and everyone else. And one of the things that I'm hearing also repeatedly is this idea about a unifying message. You brought up the sister senators and that kind of information. I'm here with SC Will, which is South Carolina Women in Leadership. We're looking to fill the pipeline. And one of the things that I would like to say is, how can we better support women who want to be on the ballot, who want to be in that appointed office? What can we do from your perspective, because you've done it? And how can we fill the pipeline? Because this is a unifying issue. Thank you so much for your service.
Sure. And we thank you for your work. We can recruit women to run, and we're not saying we don't want men to run, but since she asked, we do need women to run. And if we're going to support them, if you're not one of the women who want to run, support them by being involved in their campaign, opening up your checkbook, a Cash App. Let me get with the times here. Cash App, Venmo, All right. Contributing to that candidate, spreading the word about that candidate, voter education in our communities, talking about the opponent, because most likely that person would be running against an opponent, an incumbent. Let's talk about his record or her record on access to women's rights and health, because sometimes the opposition comes in different forms, right? And so we've got to be vigilant in doing that. But those are some of the core things of campaigning. And yes, messaging is so important. And it can be done because we have a colleague who's serving with us, our freshman colleague, Heather Bauer. She made abortion her central topic of campaigning. That was it. She did the homework, her team, they knew who were the voters in that House district, and they never wavered, and she was successful. So don't think for one moment that this isn't a winning message.
Vicky, ma'am.
Yeah. Campaigns are very expensive. Write whatever you can. Don't think that you can't help because you can't write $1,000 check. Every dollar counts.
I agree with that. Every dollar does count. But in addition to dollars, it helps that you help us to campaign. I mean, a lot of times I'll see people who say, I'd like to help you with your reelection, and then that's the end of it. But there's campaigns, there are letters to be sent out, there are phone calls to be made, there are visits to be done. There's a lot that goes on in a campaign. So if you really, really want to help women in particular, you really need to be volunteering with us and helping us to make sure that the message and the word gets out there, because a lot of times our messages don't get out. We are in a male-dominated legislature. Our numbers in terms of women in the legislature are 30 or maybe in the 30s. Yes. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you
Did
so
y'all
much.
hear that?
And so,
Second worst, second lowest female representation.
yes. So we certainly don't want to lose any seats. The last election we lost, what was it, Representative? Five women. So, and so that has cut our numbers down more. But we need more women to run and more women to want to step up to the plate so that we can have more of an equal representation, or at least our numbers are up, so that whatever comes, we can fight and we can have a presence in fight.
And I would say too, you don't have to be an attorney or a physician to be in the legislature. If you look at the makeup of our legislature, you can be whatever you want to be in the legislature. And the money is only one kind of currency. Time and your spheres of influence are also another way that you can help a campaign, because you may work for Milliken, you may work for BMW, you may have a particular civic organization that you lead. Inviting those people who are campaigning to come and talk in front of those groups and hosting them gives them the exposure that they need to make sure that people understand what their values are, what they stand for, and what they're planning to do for you. So I would say if you can't donate money, you can't run yourself, you definitely have spheres of influence. Invite those candidates to come talk to your groups.
Ashley's been patiently waiting.
For it, because y'all are talking about what you could do potentially looking at some candidates in front of you. So you might be able to pick a horse. But let's really talk about what it does mean in South Carolina. They're not paid a lot of money. I, Ashley Lito, cannot run for office right now because I cannot supplement my salary that I have. Like, economics is real, but tactically, Representative Dillard, in partnership with Representative Spencer Wetmore, pre-filed a bill to actually tactically help people who are caregivers run for office and ensure that they could actually have that additional support that is the holistic part of your life. Women are caregivers. We're the majority, we're shouldering burdens. I'm in the generation where I caregive up and down. I have a 4-year-old, and they just pre-filed a bill to ensure that campaign dollars could go to childcare. If we're looking, if we're looking at a legislature and we're all talking about how it's old and white and male dominated, yeah, because they don't have all of the other burdens of life that we are shouldering. So you can't look at me and just say, go run, babe. Like, thank you so much. But like, what about my daughter? What about my parents? What about that? And tactically, if you really are wanting to get more female, like more caregivers, more folks who are of the younger generation in office, you can go support their bill this session. You physically, if you're not seeing a female candidate that you want to go campaign for, you go ahead and support them, and that will open that pipeline. When she's out recruiting, I might actually say yes, because I can also see the pathway. It's not just her saying it exists, trust me. It is, let me show you the way. So I just wanted to raise up your leadership and give you all homework that you need to support that.
Thank you all. Y'all, I hate to do this because this is really great conversation, but we have gone over time. If I can get to Myra afterwards, we are 7 minutes over already, and we've got important things yet to come. But I will talk to you after this. I'm so sorry. Thank you all. We'll be around a little bit. Talk to us during lunch, and we'll be glad to answer your questions. Thank you for paying attention and being interested.
So thank you, Vicky. Thank you to our panelists. Lunch. I said this earlier, but if you weren't in the room, it is in the lobby of the theater, which is behind us, and it's upstairs. There's an elevator. If you'll go through this door, you can take the elevator. You can walk up these stairs, or you can go out in the lobby and walk up the stairs. There are chairs, there are tables. It's also a beautiful day, and the outside is available as well with benches. We start again at 12:45. This is a quick operation.